Good afternoon. I'm Ofra Bengio from the Moshe Center, head of Kurdish Studies program there. And I'm very delighted to open this discussion on United Kurdistan, distant dream or emerging reality. At the turn of the millennium, paradigm shifts occurred in the Middle East that changed the rules of the game in the region and thereby the political balance of power between the various forces there. 100 years ago, the map of the Middle East was designed by external forces, namely the United Kingdom and France. Today, the designers of the regional map are local players. While nation-states were the accepted political framework in the 20th century, non-state elements have been added to them in the 21st century. While nationalist and pan-Arab ideology were the dominant factors in the 20th century, today ethnic identity and Islamic religion determine the political agenda. And while in the past, organized armies dictated political and military moves, today this role has to a large extent passed to irregular armies, militias, and terrorist organizations. And where's the Kurdish nation in all this story? Never since the end of World War I were the windows of opportunity so widely open for the Kurds, and never the stakes so high. On the popular level, Kurdish awakening is taking place in almost all parts of Greater Kurdistan. But the big questions and the big challenges are the following, and this is what I will ask my presenters here. Is the Kurdish national movement strong and cohesive enough to be able to change the century-old geopolitical map, or are regional and international players still stronger? To what extent are the political elites in each part up to task, and to what extent the tribal mentality still holding the society there? Will the different agenda of each part in Greater Kurdistan play a negative role against the other, or will they find a way for modus vivendi and modus operandi? And the last question, not least, what is the future political map that each part might forge for itself? Autonomy, federation, or independence maybe? So with us to discuss these very important questions are four distinguished speakers. And the first one, I will present each one by one. The first one will be Mrs. Sinam Mohamad. Sinam Mohamad was born in Damascus and received a degree in English literature from the University of Aleppo in 1981. She has worked as an English supervisor in the Gulf state. Currently, she is the European representative of the Rojava self-ruled cantons, member of the Executive Committee of the Democratic Society Movement, TEVDEM, and since 2011, she has been a co-president of the People's Council of Rojava. Mrs. Sinam, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, our dear friends. I am here from Rojava, from Syria, north and northeast of Syria. When I want to talk about Rojava, I will not ignore Syria, because it's a part of Syria. Since now it's almost 5 years, started the Arab Spring. And unfortunately, we are waiting for springs for 5 years. Till now, no springs, more bloodshed, more refugees in all over the world from our Syrian people. And what's the reason? If we could say about Syria, we have to mention the Kurds issue there in Syria. Many years ago, the Kurds in Syria, they suffered from the dictatorship of Al-Assad regime. Our people, they were killed in the prisons. We have many examples of that. And our women also being arrested in the prison or jails of Al-Assad regime. Until now, we have so many people there, nobody knows about them, what happened, many years ago. But when the Arab Spring started, which only the Arab countries, they call it Arab Spring, which I prefer to mention it and say it is the People's Spring. In all these countries, in Syria, let us say, not only Arabs live there. In Syria, we have Arabs, we have Kurds, we have Assyrian, Syriac, we have Turkmen, we have Armenians, Durzi, and so it is not only Arab Spring, it's the spring for all these people. Unfortunately, the opposition which started in Syria, it started in the name of the Arabs and the name of Islam, which ignores the other nations, ignores the Kurds' rights, ignores the Syriac rights, ignores the Assyrian and Turkmen rights, and ignores also the Yazidis people rights, the Christians' rights, and even the Alawis who are in Syria are Kurds and Durzis. They are only calling for Islam, and they are calling for Arabs. It will be the same mentality of the dictatorship of Assad, to have dominating everything in Syria. And then they said, we make a revolution. We have changed Al-Assad regime, and we got another one. But did they change the system of this regime? This is the point. So our Kurdish in Rojava, we started to think about this. We started to have our own policy in Syria, which is the democratic line, which is not to be with the regime of Al-Assad and not to be with this such opposition, to have our own democratic line. And from this point we started. We started to contact with everyone in our people, in our regions, the regions of Rojava, Kurdistan, which we have there many nations living there. We have Arabs, we have Syriac, Assyrians, and Kurds, Turkmen, Armenians. We started to contact with them all. Anybody who admits and recognizes this system to be a democratic system in Syria, to change it, Syria, into a new Syria, to be a democratic new Syria, with a new system of pluralities, with a new system of equal of genders, which is being neglected. In this system, many people, they agree to it, and many people on this region, in this region, they come together and they founded their self-democratic administration in our region, which we call it Rojava administration. And we founded these 3 cantons, which is the cantons of Al Jazeera, the canton of Afrin, and the canton of Kobani. Separated cantons because of the presence of the ISIS in between. But now, what happened recently? We could connect together Kobani and Al Jazeera region. We could, these 2 cantons now connect together by controlling the Tal Abyad place, which was 2 years under the control of ISIS. We could liberate this Tal Abyad from the ISIS hands. It is now under these cities' people hand. They founded their own council with Turkmens, with Arabs, and Kurds together administrating this city, Tal Abyad. And they could connect it with Kobani. And the liberation of Kobani, everybody knows and heard about Kobani. Kobani, this small city in the north of Syria, which was very neglected before, now it has become the capital city of the resistance against ISIS. It has become the city of resisting and protecting the humanity in all over the world. This is Kobani. It is liberated by the resistance of the fighters, YPG and YPJ there. And with the other Arabs fighters also together, with the Syriac together, they could liberate it. But we can't forget also the help of the international coalition led by United States. In this occasion, I would like to thank the United States for helping us in these airstrikes so that we could liberate Kobani and could liberate Tel Aviv, and we could liberate Al-Hasaka city, which was also under the ISIS control. All these places now it is liberated. But when we say liberated, we paid very high price. We paid very high price of more than 3,000 of our martyrs being killed in this war. These ISIS, which they attacked our people, they attacked in the beginning Sarikaniye, which in 2012, but they are not ISIS that time. They were Jabhatul Nusra, they were Ahrar al-Sham, they were Ahfad al-Ummah, and many brigades who were under the Free Syrian Army names that time. They attacked our people there. But we could defeat them. We could liberate Sarikaniya in 2012 from them. Then ISIS come out. ISIS, when they attacked Kobani, and they attacked our places in Rojava, even in Afrin and Kobani and Al Jazeera, really they were supported by the government of Turkey. They were coming from Turkey into our places to attack our people there. In Tel Aviv, it was under their control, and there we have a border gate in Tel Aviv and Turkey. This gate, when ISIS was there, it used to be opened. All the fighters, foreign fighters, they used to come from this gate. Petrol used to go from this gate to Turkey. But when it is liberated now, it is closed, the border. This is what's happening. So our now regions, it is liberated, most of the Kobani and the Tel Aviv, all from ISIS, by the help of the airstrikes led by United States. Our people really thanks the United States for these efforts. It is a good thing to do. We have in Rojava now the protection and defense side. But don't forget, we have administration. We are there having also another side, not only defense and protection. We have the basic services for the people. We have education. We have health care. We are really great to have support in the military side with the airstrikes. But these weapons, they don't feed our people in Rojava. Everybody must know this. These weapons, they don't educate our people in Rojava and Kobani. They don't open schools for us. And they don't feed the small baby seeking for milk. They don't offer health care for the people and for the wounded people who were fighting against ISIS. So what we really ask now, not only for the protection side and defense side to have this support, but we are seeking for more support for our people on the ground in order to strengthen this democratic administration, which is a new administration in the area, in Syria, in all over Syria. We need the support in each stage, in health, in education, and in economic side. Do you know what is there? Let me talk about Afrin now, Canton. It is now completely, it is besieged, economic besiege. Turkish border is closed, and from the other side, inside Syria, it's closed by the Jabhatun Nusra also. Where can these people go? How can they live? How can they get their medicine? So you imagine. So we need to have borders for our people to get their medical treatment, to get their education, to get their supplies. For Kobani, to get the supplies in order to rebuild Kobani. Till now, we are waiting for our friends to help us in rebuilding this destroyed city of Kobani, which have been destroyed by the ISIS. But unfortunately, we get very less. And our people still are waiting for that. They are waiting unless most of the people, they will be refugees in all over Europe. And you know the refugees issue, which has become a very serious issue in all over Europe. So this is what we need, really. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Muslih Mustafa. Dr. Mustafa is the president of Soran University in Iraqi Kurdistan. His PhD was in theology, and he is an expert on de-radicalization and political Islam. He is a leading member in the Higher Board of Ministry of Higher Education of Kurdistan Regional Government. On his behalf, Mr. Nahro Zagros will be talking about Kurdistan of Iraq.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm talking on behalf of Dr. Muslih Mustafa, my colleague and the president of Soran University. What we are trying to talk about today is to touch upon 4 important issues when it comes to the current political situation in Iraqi Kurdistan. And these are Kurdish or Kurdistan in the fight against ISIS, but also the future of Kurds in Iraq and political discourse among the Kurdish political parties and political identity and conflict between the Kurdish political parties in Iraqi Kurdistan, and lastly, Kurdish oil strategy and economic independence. Right. It's fair to say, and we are not exaggerating to say, the only force in the Middle East who are fighting ISIS effectively are Kurds, whether in Rojava, in Kobani, or in Mahmur, in Kirkuk, in all fronts in Iraqi Kurdistan. Like Bayan Sami Abdurrahman mentioned last night, in Iraqi Kurdistan now we share more than 1,000 kilometers border with ISIS, and ISIS are attacking Kurdistan every day from all fronts. Kurds fight ISIS with little help, I must say, from the West, and very little help from everyone in the world. We are fighting ISIS with old Russian Kalashnikovs while they are possessing most up-to-date American weapons. And when Mosul fell, ISIS managed to capture lots of heavy weapons and modern weapons from the Iraqi army. America invested a lot in the Iraqi army with lots of money and lots of ammunition, lots of modern technology. All of a sudden, in the space of a few hours, ISIS managed to get hold of all these weapons. And now they are fighting Iraqis, they are fighting Kurds with those weapons, while we are still fighting with old Russian guns. But the fight has proven to be decisive and also most effective in Iraq. Without the Kurds, Iraq would have gone by now. But because of the fight that Kurds are doing in Iraqi Kurdistan, ISIS are weakened, and now they are much, much weaker than ever. Now, the future of Iraq again, it's another question that we want to talk about. It's a future, very bleak future, very pessimistic future. It's also not exaggerated if one says that there is no Iraq. Since that there is no Iraq, there won't be any Iraq in the future. Iraq, it's a country divided along ethnic and sectarian lines, and it has been like that for many years. Okay? But now, more than ever, geographically, culturally, linguistically, politically, the country is divided. There is no way that you could piece it back together. Whether we like it or not, ISIS redrew the map. With the intervention of ISIS, Iraq was no longer there, but now it was killed. ISIS killed Iraq forever. Now, the future of Iraq is very bleak, and there is no hope there. The Kurds are the most prepared people in Iraq to have their own state. Kurds can get their state, maybe not because for fighting for it, but Iraq will dissolve into 3 states, whether we like it or not. The main challenge that faces the Kurds in Iraqi Kurdistan at the moment are a few issues, one of which is economic, with the price of oil dropping down. It hurted the Kurds in so many ways in Iraqi Kurdistan, the fight with ISIS, but also the political discourse and the political conflict that we have between the political parties in Iraqi Kurdistan. But above all of this, it's also great to notice that Kurds are debating among themselves. They're not fighting each other. Sometimes in the Western media, you hear different stories. But what's happening in Iraqi Kurdistan, for example, when it comes to the presidency issue, whether Barzani should be the president of Kurdistan or somebody else, Kurds are debating that in a democratic way. Sometimes we see people coming on streets demonstrating. Again, it shows this level of freedom and level of democracy. But more importantly, if this issue was in a different country in the Middle East, if it was in Syria or Yemen or Libya or Egypt, people would have killed each other. But Kurds are debating this issue. But knowing that Kurds are preparing themselves to rule their own country and to have their own country sooner or later, they are trying to also break away economically from Iraq. With this strategy of Prime Minister Necip Barzani, with linking oil pipelines to Ceyhan port in Turkey, it's that foreseen future, this forecast that Iraq will break up, but when Iraq breaks up, who would be most prepared to govern themselves? I think with this strategy, having this link with the outside world, and already selling oil to lots of different countries, and also it's great to hear that yesterday the court in Texas rejected Iraqi notion that Kurds have right to sell oil in America and anywhere else in the world, because it was stipulated in the Iraqi constitution. It was already in the Iraqi constitution. So to have this backing from this court in Texas, it was a very good thing. So when Iraq breaks up with these oil pipelines and also other connections that we have with the outside world, Kurds are most prepared to govern themselves and have their own country. So I'm sure you have lots of questions later on when it comes to that. I'll leave it here. Bayan Sami Abdurrahman mentioned so many things yesterday and left nothing for us to discuss, but I'll answer your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Arash Saleh. Mr. Arash Saleh was born in Kermanshah, Eastern Kurdistan. He studied law in Sanandaj and wrote for various Kurdish papers published in Eastern Kurdistan, which is very interesting. He studied political science at the University of Albany and is currently the representative of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan in the United States. Please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you and thank Ofra for having me here and giving me this opportunity to express my party's political point of view and the political agenda. Well, actually, first of all, I want to stick to the questions of Ofra and use them as a gate through which we can open our debate and through which we can go inside the discussion. Well, when it comes to the question of independence and united Kurdistan, I believe we have to separate two different things. First of all, an individual dream, and second, a political agenda. What motivated us to be a politician, to go inside politics and to do something for Kurdistan is that individual dream, a united, free, independent Kurdistan. This is a dream that I can say almost everybody in Kurdistan has it. But when it comes to political agenda of the different various parties, we have to factor in and count some other factors. For example, we have to consider pragmatism. We have to consider the realities of Middle East, and we have to consider our potentials. And our potentials are most important things. As the gentleman mentioned here, the potentials are those that right now Iraqi Kurdistan government is working on. And those are, and the lady mentioned it, these are some things that right now the administration of Rojava is working on it. So when it comes to political agenda, when we're talking about independence in our political agenda, pragmatism is a very strong factor in our politics in Kurdistan. What our party thinks is beyond independence and even autonomy and various types of various types of solutions that we can provide for Kurdistan. We believe that in our political agenda we have this agenda to institutionalizing the right to self-determination of people. This is the thing that we are looking for. This is the program that we are trying to reach. This is the goal that we are trying to reach. It doesn't matter whether pragmatism or other factors tells us to stay in a federal situation or in a confederal situation inside the borders of Iraq, Iran, or Turkey. But it matters that we leave a situation, we leave a type of institutions, we leave a types of regime that can allow next generations to determine what they want to do for their future, for their lives. And we believe this is the key to the stability and democracy in Middle East. What I was trying to argue here was that democracy, stability, and Kurds question are very correlated concepts. We cannot have democracy and stability in Middle East without addressing Kurds question. And at the other side, we cannot solve the Kurds question without democracy. Kurds question only can be solved within a democratic framework. And this is, a kind of correlation that we can find between these three concepts. In Western societies, we consider, stability and democracy as concomitant. They come together, and they're always together. But in Middle East, it's strange to know that stability is a product of tyrants. For so many years, Western states were trying to support tyrants to restore stability in the Middle East. And this is the question of a lot of literature. When you do a literature review here, you can find that a lot of works has been done, and it is replete with the question of failed endeavors toward democracy and resurgence of tyrants and destabilizing the Middle East. I believe that This is because of the way that nation states has been formed in Middle East. Nation states have been formed in a way that they cannot produce democracy. A lot of people consider this phenomenon of resurgence of tyrants and chaos and resurgence of tyrants again as failed endeavors toward democracy. But some see a kind of pattern here, and that is a circle that society goes around chaos and again dictatorship. This is a kind of pattern that you can find in, for example, Iran. We have 3 failed endeavors in Iran for democracy. The first started with constitutional revolution, and then the 79 revolution, and then the endeavor toward the reformist movement in Iran that reached its peak like in 2001 and 2002. If you study these endeavors, you can see that after all of these changes, after all of these endeavors, you have a stronger and more dictatorship in Iran and a stronger tyrant in Iran. After the constitutional revolution, you have Reza Shah. After the revolution of 79, you have Khomeini, who is the most brutal tyrant in history of Iran. And after the reformist movement, you can see Khamenei, or the current leader of Iran, is more stronger and is a kind of absolutist tyrant in Iran. I believe that, as I mentioned, this goes back to the root cause of this is the way that nation states are formed in Iran. Nation states are formed under 2 broad factors. First of all, the nostalgia and the quest to maintain supremacy by, for example, by those ethnicities that have upper hand. They have the nostalgia to go back to their imperial and their, for example, in Iran, the nostalgia to go back to Persian Empire and to maintain the supremacy of Persians over the nation. And also the other factor is the intervention of transregional factors, transregional actors, like as Ofra mentioned earlier, in the case of Great Britain in Middle East. So these 2 demands, these 2 factors are in a kind of relations that you can say there's a correlation between these 2 forces. First, the nostalgia and the quest to supremacy, and second, on the other hand, the quest for a type of stability that can guarantee the flow of oil or something like that. This coalition has built corrupted, sometimes secular, sometimes religious, but corrupted structures in Middle East, and these structures are reluctant to democracy. They show a kind of reluctancy toward democracy because whenever you have a kind of endeavor toward democracy, they see that those actors who are engaged in this endeavor see the situation as a kind of threat to total integrity of Iran. And this fear, for example, you can see this fear in Iraq also, in the other parts of Kurdistan. This fear to total integrity, to lose the total integrity, will make them to embrace another tyrant because there are not enough democratic institutions to provide reconciliation in the society, and it is just tyrants that can put all these corrupted structures together, and the society will embrace a tyrant after a series of endeavors and series of chaos in Iran, in Iraq, and in Turkey, and that is the product of these corrupted structures, and it is not going to be solved unless the Kurds questions, the Arabs questions, for example, in Iran, the Turkmen questions, the Azeri question is addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, again, Dr. Nahro Zagros, my friend. Dr. Nahro Zagros is the Vice President of Soran University in Iraqi Kurdistan and writes for local newspapers on Kurdistan's socio-political affairs within the wider Middle Eastern context. His research interests include politics, identity of minorities in Kurdistan, and Iraq, and cultural musicology. And I would add he is a very great musicologue. And please, you will present the Turkish case.
Thanks very much, Ofra, and hello again. Right. Turkey, the situation in Turkey is completely different from Iraq, Syria, and Iran, and the evolution of conflict between Kurds and Turks have evolved greatly. It's no longer the same like 1980s, 1990s, even in 2000. Now, with the Kurds, or with Turkey heading towards polls and for general election again, the second time within 3-4 months, Kurds are trying to capture the votes in southeast, but also among lots of Turks in all over Turkey. Hadap in June election managed to get over 13% of the votes. About 1.5 million votes came within the Turkish population of Turkey. And this time with the election, all polls are predicting the results will be the same. So Hadap is trying to get, again, 80 MPs to the Turkish parliament for the first time ever in history of Turkey. Also, although we had Kurds representing Kurdish MPs representing Kurds in Turkey in the parliament, but not in a political entity like this one. When Hadap tried to enter the Turkish parliament, nobody thought that they would get the 10% of threshold. But now they managed to get 13%, and I'm sure this time they will get over 12% if the polls are right. And the situation will be the same. Here, if the situation is the same, all political analysts are saying there won't be another election. This time, Turkey will go into a coalition, or Turkish political parties will go into a coalition. And also, it's clear that Hadap won't be a part of that government that is going to be created in Turkey. So if the polls are right, nobody will get the majority to form a government. They have to go into coalition. And for the coalition, the majority again are saying CHP, People's Republican Party, and AKP, Justice and Development Party, are the ones might coalesce and form a government. In both instances, whether AKP will win outright or AKP will go into a coalition with CHP, then the situation for Kurds might not change greatly. At the moment, there is no peace in Turkey. After July 20th bombing in Suruj, in this Kurdish town on the border of Syria, with a suicide attack, the war raged and it's escalating every day, and more people are getting killed from both sides, and there is no way that it could easily be changed. The future of Kurds in Turkey, it's very dark, I'm afraid. But it's also important for the Kurds in Iraq. Peace and stability in Turkey, it gives Kurds in Iraq greater hope. In 1980s, former President Turgut Özal said, if there is no peace in Kurdish part of Turkey, there is no peace for Kurds in entire Kurdistan. And I think he was right in saying that. And by the way, Turgut Özal was the first president who initiated peace process between Kurds and Turks. It wasn't implemented, but he was the first president to initiate that in 1980s. So the Kurds in Iraq are observing the violence escalation as well as the Turkish election very carefully, because it affects both of them. But also it will affect people in Rojava, not so greatly in Iran, but Rojava will be affected by the results of election and by also the next strategic movement that the Turkish government will take. Some people in Turkey would say all of this violence is because AKP is trying to create this environment in which nationalists will vote for them, but also Kurds who were undecided, they will vote for AKP because AKP, on the one hand, people think it can bring peace and stability. On the other hand, for the Turkish nationalists who voted MHP, they might change to AKP because now AKP is trying to move the army against the Kurds. Either way, it's bad. And there is no quick solution to this problematic conflict. But also, on the one hand, the economy is suffering. On the other hand, war is raging. Where would the Turks think in this, between these two extreme situations? Since the war started, since July 20th, Turkish lira is coming down every day. Turkish economy is badly hurt by it. And after the general election, if AKP try to bring back peace process, would be great. Otherwise, it would be bad for both sides. But Iraqi Kurdistan will suffer from it too. And my personal view is that it's not going to be fixed easily because neither PKK nor the army in Turkey are interested in having peace and dialogue together. And with the war also still going on in Rojava, with this proxy war between two different worlds, one led by America, Europe, and Turkey, the other one by Iran and Russia in the Middle East, Kurds are also divided. And I think with political solution being far distant for the Kurds in Turkey will have a very negative effect on Kurds all over Kurdistan. But if AKP try to coalesce with HDP and form a government, this might be a different reality, but this is a very little possibility. There is no hope in that because neither of the two political parties are trying to work together. And Kurds in Turkey, especially the PKK, are changing their strategy when it comes to fight. I was talking to my colleague here to, again, re-emphasize on this issue whether if the fight broke out, whether the Turkish army and PKK will use the same strategies as in 1990s. And he said no. And I think it's clear by all these demonstrations happening in southeastern Turkey. PKK are more effective now inside the cities of Turkey, whereas before they had less support in doing that. Now they can hold and capture even villages and towns and hold them for a few days, which is again a very new strategy, a very new technique that they are using. Let's hope that neither the army nor the PKK will try to fire guns to each other. Let's hope that will be a peaceful Turkey and southeastern Turkey, and the peace process will come back, because it will be good for both the Kurds in Turkey and Kurds in Iraq, but also for the Turkish economy and Turkish people. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for all the speakers.